President Pro Tem Cinziano. I want to specifically celebrate and appreciate President Pro Tem Cinziano and Councilmember Tyson for their work and their leadership on the GCAC board and for their feedback and engagement throughout this process. On September 17th, GCAC presented this council with a reasonable idea to add a 7% fee to tickets sold for events, raising new dollars we can reinvest in our arts organizations, artists, and civic arenas of Columbus. We have spent the last 2 months listening to the Columbus community. More than 2,500 of our residents have provided feedback via our survey. We've heard from supporters and we've heard from our opponents. We've heard from voices from across the spectrum. Specifically, I would like to thank Mr. Jim Lorimer, Dr. Scott Myers and the Quarter Horse Congress, Mr. Mike Priest and the Blue Jackets, Ms. Nanette Macy June at the Columbus Museum of Arts, Dr. Fredley Bertley at COSI, Bruce Harkey of Franklin Park Conservatory, and many more. We are proud to be here today with a path forward, an updated plan, and allies to invest in our creative infrastructure. As you can see from the boards in front of us, our proposed plan is to create 2 funds supported by a 5% fee on tickets. This plan is framed by 3 questions. What's the money for? How much is the fee? And who pays? So first, what is the money used for? The creativity and stability are the cornerstones of this plan. Here's how we propose to invest the funds from a 5% ticket fee. The Creativity Fund, also known as Fund 1, increases inclusion and access for families. It can nearly double the grants to artists and small arts groups and create support for our great festivals. It will also greatly increase the funding for our major arts groups, our symphony orchestra, our opera, our ballet, our jazz arts groups, our museums and venues. The Creativity Fund is expected to raise about $6 million a year from the ticket fees on arts groups and major venues other than Nationwide Arena. The second fund, the Stability Fund, protects buildings including Nationwide Arena, COSI, the King Arts Complex, the Lincoln Theater, Franklin Park Conservatory, and a number of others. Nationwide Arena attracts national events, conventions, conferences, and performances. Around half of the visitors to Nationwide Arena come from out of town. This building is a cornerstone of the Arena District, and we own it. As we said the other day, if it breaks, the city and the county already have to find the money to fix it. And this is our reality. This civic asset brings millions of people and millions of dollars to our city, supporting thousands of jobs and energy of our downtown. It is important to note that the Stability Fund gets revenue solely from Nationwide Arena ticket sales and makes it clear that no other venue's revenue will be spent on the needs of our civic arena. 80% of the funds will support that building's capital needs. The remaining 20% will be awarded to the cultural buildings through competitive grants administered by GCAC. At 5%, this fund could raise $3 million a year, with $2.4 million going to the arena from the arena and $600,000 going from the arena to the other buildings to protect our civic assets. However, in Columbus, we don't go it alone, and that's why we've encouraged GCAC to continue the conversations with regional partners like the Franklin County Commissioners on this effort. Franklin County and the City of Columbus are partners in many of these civic facilities, and we will continue to work with the county to ensure this is a community solution for stability. The second major issue of debate was the rate of the fee, or how much is this going to cost our users. At the end of the day, the proposed 7% was too high. That's what our council has heard from many in the community. So we are lowering the rate to help protect the many national and local businesses presenting shows in Columbus. By cutting GCAC's proposed rate from 7% to 5%, we believe that the market can continue to grow and attract national tours. If new partners beyond these mentioned today are willing to join in the GCA's mission, it is certainly a conversation that we would like to have. As many people stacking hands to move our community forward, the better. Contributions from Columbus companies to the arts are in the millions of dollars, but we gladly welcome more companies in the private sector to continue to support the creative industry and support this creative fund. The final big issue area was exemptions. We agree that the Greater Columbus Arts Council's recommendations to exempt venues with audience capacity under 400 people and tickets costing less than $10, we agree with that. However, for many of us, we specifically want to make sure that the movie tickets, $10 and under, are exempt. That is to protect families, entertainment, and community engagement as it pertains to movie going. I would also like to note that we are reviewing exemptions for non-art, non-entertainment, and non-profit fundraisers. There are a number of nonprofits that do great work in our city, but are not involved in the arts and the cultural arena. They often hold ticketed events, and we want to ensure that this fee only impacts the appropriate parties. I anticipate we will add an amendment to ensure this exemption is appropriately captured. With regard to college sports, it is far from tested and it is not state law. However, the City Attorney's Office has advised that it is legally difficult to levy a fee on the Ohio State University. I've spent time in the past few weeks in discussion with President Drake, talking about our shared vision, our shared responsibility, and our shared destiny. Ohio State University has publicly committed $1 million to the arts annually if Council approves this initiative. I'm very appreciative of Dr. Drake's personal commitment to stacking hands to build new alliances between OSU arts programs and our community's great arts groups. We will continue to consider ideas and changes, but we feel this is a fair plan. We feel it's a bold plan and it's a realistic plan that addresses the biggest concerns of our residents and our stakeholders. The fee is lower than GCAC proposed, but thanks to our allies, we will have a huge impact for generations to come. At this point, and like I said, I specifically want to thank all of my colleagues, and again to our members of GCAC board and those who have, to President Pro Tem Cinciano and Councilmember Tyson, who has represented the entire city, the city of Columbus, on the board. We've been really grateful for their engagement. But to all my colleagues for the back and forth, a lot of us have sat down and had conversations with interested parties. There have been many in a conversation this important to the future of our city. There are many stakeholders, and we wouldn't expect less than to be engaged. So I appreciate everyone's willingness and everyone's engagement. Do any of my colleagues have any comments before we open up for public comment? At this point, the important part of this entire process and what I would like, what I hope is said throughout is that this council listened. That through the surveys, we're getting more than 2,500 results back, through the phone calls just in the last 2 days, about 150 phone calls today, to the numerous emails that we've all received, that this council has listened, that when issues were brought that were practical, that we make practical changes. And I hope that is reflected in this proposal, but more so appreciated about this process. And so with that, we are going to go into the public speaking portion of this hearing. Just a reminder that anyone coming to speak, if you would please state your name, your address, and any organization that you represent. A reminder that you'd have 3 minutes to speak. The first person that I have before me is Carrie Haberkin. Is that correct? Okay, welcome to council. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and if you state your name, your address, and any organization that you may represent.
Carrie Haberkern, Columbus Children's Choir, 584 Richards Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43214. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council about this important matter. Thank you, President Hardin, for your leadership, and to council members for your diligence. My name is Carrie Haberkern, and I'm the Managing Director of Columbus Children's Choir. Many of you will see our singers at Holiday Pops this weekend wearing their familiar red jackets. Columbus Children's Choir has been a pillar of youth arts in Columbus since 1987, when it was formed at the request of the Columbus Symphony. Since then, we've had the honor of representing our city in 11 countries, at the White House, and most recently at Carnegie Hall. As Columbus grows and thrives under the leadership of local government, so does Columbus Children's Choir. In fact, we've outgrown our funding. We serve more than 500 children annually and make $20,000 of need-based financial aid available every year. We teach children from all cultural and financial backgrounds musicianship, discipline, and love of art. Columbus Children's Choir is as committed to equal access as it is to artistic excellence. With increased funding from the ticket fee, we hope to grow our choirs, reach new children from underserved communities, add jobs to our local economy, and continue to proudly represent Columbus at home and abroad. We believe that new funding from the ticket fee sends a powerful message about the value of the arts and encourages future support from current and potential givers. We also know that a vibrant arts community is a hallmark of a healthy and prosperous city. Our constituents largely agree. In fact, a recent organizational email sent to over 3,000 individuals was met with excitement about the proposal. Without increased funding for the arts, we will continue to swim upstream, make the small gains we can when we can. But our city deserves a sustainable solution so that we can continue to support artists, grow organizations, and keep up with the talents of our children. So while you're listening to our singers perform this holiday season with the Columbus Symphony, Harmony Project, and at Franklin Park Conservatory, take a moment to think about what opportunities new funding could mean, not just for the young musicians of Columbus Children's Choir, but for all children across the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haberkorn. Any questions from my colleagues? I think you're good. The next person to come before council is Mr. Yohanan Terrell. Mr. Terrell, welcome back to council. Just a reminder, if you state your name and any organization that you would represent, and a reminder of 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Yohanan Terrell. Said address. Address is 27 East Russell Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. I'm the CEO and partner of Warhol and Wall Street, a branding firm here in Columbus, Ohio. Good evening, Council President Hardin, Council Members Stenziano, Brown, Page, Remy, and Tyson. Again, my name is Yohanan Terrell. I am a business owner, CEO of Warhol and Wall Street. We're a branding firm here in the Short North. I am also a Greater Columbus Arts Council board member, and my firm has led the creative effort of the year-long Harlem Renaissance celebration. I'm excited to be here tonight to speak in support of Council President Hardin's Columbus Art Alliance proposal, and to tell you that entrusting these funds to an organization that is not just responsible, transparent steward of public funds, but also to an organization, board, and staff with huge hearts and a deep caring for the community. Just over a year ago, Mayor Ginther and the council appointed me to the board of the Arts Council to help bring forward-thinking ideas and connections to the community with our efforts. I also consider my role one of a steward of inclusivity and engagement with the community. I see the fruits of this every day in my work with the Arts Council. I get to see firsthand not only the incredible impact of our grants with the artists in all disciplines and all ethnicities and organizations of all sizes, but I also get to see the passion and the authentic dedication that the board has and a small staff that is doing a big job. Also, as a board member, I'm proud of the skills, awareness, and engagement I've been able to bring to the table. And the Harlem Renaissance is an example of that. The Arts Council has worked hand in hand with our firm and the entire community on this project, serving as a primary contact point, helping bring people and organizations together, leading media efforts, recruiting sponsors, and providing financial oversight. The success of this effort goes to more than 30 participating organizations and more than 100 artists. But what has meant the most to me is being a part of something that has impacted so many artists throughout the city, and working with the staff and the Arts Council to lead the effort. Together, we have helped elevate this to a truly community-wide celebration and engaging artists of all backgrounds, ages, and experience. Just to give you an example, tomorrow we will host 5 short films at Gateway Film Center, all a part of the My Great Day in Harlem, which is a weekend trip that we took to Harlem in late July, with 5 Columbus artists to reconnect their roots and bring those creative experiences back to Columbus. We have 2 sold-out shows tomorrow, and we're working on additional showings and educational experiences for these 10-minute glimpses into 72 hours that change 5 lives. None of this could have been done without the support of the Arts Council and public funds that the city invests. I know personally that African American arts organizations and artists in Columbus feel more connected to our community and to the Arts Council through that investment. I cannot overstate the impact these new funds generated by the Columbus Art Alliance fee will have on Black creatives and everyone in our community. I am grateful to City Council for recognizing that this is an investment in the city that we are building together. Thank you.
Any questions from my colleagues? Thank you, Mr. Terrell. The next speaker to come before council is Mr. Brett Adams. Mr. Adams, welcome back to council. Just a reminder, state your name, address, and the organization that you represent, and reminder for 3 minutes.
Brett Adams, the Columbus Anti-Tax Coalition, 583 East Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. President Hardin, members of council, and friends, as I've known many of you for many years, including this gentleman over here for about 4 decades. I was a very young man. I know you're surprised to hear me or see me here today after my cake is baked comment, but I have 2 reasons to be here. One, I need to apologize to you, President Hardin, for our misunderstanding. I know we talked afterwards, and I apologize in your office. I hope you'll accept my public apology. And secondly, and as importantly, Jim Lorimer asked me to be here because he's a diplomat, and he believes that the message that I am about to deliver on behalf of the Columbus Anti-Tax Coalition is going to be heard. And I hope to be as optimistic as he is at the conclusion of this hearing. So on behalf of the 50 members of the Columbus Anti-Tax Coalition, we respectfully request that the adoption of this politically charged ticket tax proposal be delayed. Delayed in the effort to achieve a solution to funding of the arts that is more equitable for the Columbus taxpayers, as well as for the wide-ranging and hugely important leaders in our community who comprise the event-producing industry. Please note that the economic impact of our coalition totals to more than $1 billion annually for our great city. Our now thriving event-producing business in Columbus is seriously threatened by this oppressive and unneeded ticket tax proposal. Ticket sales are the heart, blood, and soul of the event-producing industry. Being required to pass these proceeds to other event producers is wrong, hurtful, and unconscionable. It's also very important to note that the Arts Council, that is the intended beneficiary of these funds, now receives more than $7 million annually from our city's high bed tax fund. Our coalition members are the primary source of that bed tax revenue, but we get zero. A ticket tax is highly regressive. It's a tax on families, men, women, and children will have to pay more for attendance at virtually every event in our community. While nearly all of the great variety of events now offered in our city will be newly and additionally taxed, the sole beneficiary will be the Arts Council. The so-called sin tax, which is used in other communities, have been productive tax sources. Do not take away funds from sports and dozens of other legitimate entertainment events. The unwanted reality is that if this ticket tax is adopted, both legal challenges and referendum remedies will become, unfortunately, necessary. The citizens of Columbus do not want or should not be required to pay taxes to attend a great variety of events in our community now, and we would like to continue and offering solutions. Questions?
President Pro Tem.
Thank you, President Hardin. Thank you, Mr. Adams. So if it wasn't going to GCAC into the city, like all the other cities that have an admissions fee, would your organization be wanting a delay and in opposition?
Well, we haven't addressed that question internally yet, so I can't speak on behalf of the coalition. I'm not sure that it makes a tremendous difference because we're still taxing venues that compete with other venues. You know, at the Bluestone, we compete with the Shadow Box. The Shadow Box, who I've supported from day one, same ticket price, same entertainment, but we're collecting taxes to help our competition. I mean, this is like McDonald's buying, you know, a new roof at Wendy's. And it's just inherently unfair to the individual and the individual venues here that are helping our competition. I mean, we support the Shadow Box. We love the Shadow Box. But they got $250,000 last year from GCAC. If this passed, they get $500,000. It puts us at a huge competitive disadvantage. Not to mention the unconstitutionality of all, and I didn't come here to argue the legal. We still want a solution. We want to sit down, we want to talk to GCAC, who's never reached out to us in this entire process to come up with a solution, and we're willing to do that. We just don't want this ramrodded through without further discussion and input.
Mr. Adams, what's your solution?
A couple solutions. Now that the nationwide element has essentially been taken off of the table, although I still don't know why they would give 20% back to the arts. It's a sporting event. But our solution is the shortfall is with the lack of private funding. Columbus is a new progressive city. We don't have old money like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and that's been a huge shortfall here. And I'm not saying it's the fault of GCAC. I don't know that they're equipped or they've really gone out and made those corporate calls. That's one solution. But there's got to be, even if it's a tax solution, and I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the tax advocates who we're partnering with, but there's got to be a broader-based tax than what's affecting individual venues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. The next speaker to come before council is Lindsay Cooper Martin. Welcome to council. Just a reminder, state your name and any organization that you represent, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Cooper Martin. I am with the Wexner Center for the Arts, where I am Deputy Director. The address there is 1871 North High, Columbus, Ohio, 43210. I want to thank you, Council President Hardin, and all the members of the City Council for allowing further listening on this important initiative. Ultimately, this conversation is about the value and criticality of arts in our community and providing adequate funds to allow our art sector to grow in line with our rapidly growing city. We at the WEX wholeheartedly support efforts to increase the funding and thus the sustainability of our cultural community. At the WEX, we know this is essential to our community's vitality. With nearly 30 years of international level cultural programming under our belt, we are enormously proud of how we have worked to create real impact to those in the Columbus community as well as communities beyond. The stories of this abound. A documentary created in our film residency program as part of a year of celebration of contemporary art in Brazil was just announced as part of Sundance's lineup this winter. The first major exhibition of visual artist Mark Bradford debuted here and traveled to Boston, Chicago, Dallas, and San Francisco. Mark and the curator of that exhibition went on to represent the U.S. in the last Venice Biennale. And just last night, Lars Jan's theater piece, White Album, had its New York City debut at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. This piece was workshopped on Mershon stage over 3 weeks this past July and was presented here in Columbus less than a month ago. This production features Columbus's own Sharon Udo as part of a multi-city tour. While I could go on, I will pause here and take a moment to tell you a little bit about how this work comes together in extraordinary partnership with our artists, talented staff, and unparalleled community. Right now, artist and choreographer Ann Carlson is working to create a new work entirely inspired by the food system here in Columbus. She is spending over 3 months in our city exploring the concept of nourishment, the role food plays in daily life, our access to it, and our trust with the people who make it. She has met with over 100 people and is in the process of recruiting 50 local participants to form a community to share in the making of this work. She is reaching out to organizations like Mid-Ohio Food Bank, Franklin Park Conservatory, and Local Matters, as well as individuals like an entrepreneur behind an East Side vegan soul food restaurant, and those who work at OSU Athletics to ensure our athletes can perform at the highest levels. The result will be a movement symphony this April that ties these themes and people and organizations together. I hope you will join us for the celebration of community. So in closing, what would enhanced funding through this initiative mean to the WEX? More wonderful projects like this, more Columbus residents touched by arts and culture, and more of the city influenced by the international dialogue around arts and culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Ms. Martin, President Pro Tem
I
Sims
do have
has
a question for you.
So
I've been struggling with the WEX and Mershon a little bit with the proposal. So how do you anticipate this proposal applying to the events that the WEX holds or Mershon, knowing that Ohio State may be involved, may not be involved? We've gone back and forth with staff, but since you're here, I'm going to ask you directly.
Well, I should say I am not authorized to speak on behalf of the entirety of Ohio State. So
I
no,
will give you that authority if you want it.
I'm a government employee, so it's above my pay grade, as they say. Well, you're elected. It's a little different. But we at the WEX are great beneficiaries of GCAC funding, and I believe the language of the legislation as such is that beneficiaries would be voluntarily participating, even though many of our venues would be excluded due to the 400 capacity issue for 400 seats. So we would, as an organization, voluntarily submit that fee on top of the tickets sold as part of our organization, and we would work with OSU to try to achieve that, although that said, I don't make those calls. Thanks.
The next speaker to come before council is Bruce Harkey. Mr. Harkey here? I don't see Mr. Harkey in the chamber, so I'm going to move to the next speaker, is Ms. Demetrius Neely. Ms. Neely, welcome back to council. Just a reminder, state the name of the organization you represent and that you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, President Hardin and members of City Council, and thank you for taking time to hear our appeal today. Demetrius Neely, I should have said my name, Demetrius Neely, representing the King Arts Complex, 867 Mount Vernon Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. The King Arts Complex is a multidisciplinary arts organization whose mission is connecting community through the arts. And we have been doing this for 32 years, connecting community through the arts by advancing visual, performing, youth education, literary and media arts education. We sit in one of the most vibrant communities in Columbus, the King Lincoln District. The area has been dubbed the cradle of jazz. It was once home to world-renowned artists such as Smokey Brown, Elijah Pierce, and Amina Robinson. And back in the day, artists such as Nancy Wilson, Harry Sweets Edison, and Rashawn Roland Kirk played in the local nightclubs. But today, the King Arts Complex is the only place you can go to see evidence of this rich history. With our museum-quality installations, we exhibit the art of the history of the days gone by. Since opening our doors, the King Arts Complex has served as an important resource for the community. It is an oasis for cultural and educational activities and a community venue for special events. The King Arts Complex has been described as a sophisticated arts institution who the community has come to rely on to bring artistic excellence to the city. And some of those examples are youth arts education, our award-winning programs. For 20 years, we've been hosting the Heritage Music Festival, in which we bring 30,000 people to our summer open-air concerts, free gallery exhibitions, annual back-to-school drive, and many other free community events. The Columbus community relies on the King Arts Complex to provide high-caliber arts programming at little or no charge, because many of our residents come from homes where they are economically disadvantaged, and but for the King Arts Complex, may never be exposed to the arts. We also give work rise to artists whose voices may never be heard, those who seek representation of their experiences, and those whose viewpoints are far too often neglected. Yet, we know the district is changing, and because of that, we are serving a more diverse community. Today, we work with other arts organizations to illustrate the Columbus way, collaborations with the Columbus Museum of Art, Ballet Met, OSU, JAG, Short North Stage, the National Theatre of Ghana, which gives voice to some 35,000 Ghanaians who call Columbus home, the Falcon Dalfa Mediation Group, and First Tuesday Tea. Our mission is our strength. We connect community through the arts, and it tells our story. The City of Columbus, you are a partner and you are a founder, and you have always been a remarkable supporter. Additional funding through the ticket fee from GCAC helps all of these previous events that we talked about in these previous organizations be sustainable. So thank you for listening, and we ask that you support the ticket fee so that we can enhance and continue to support artists in Columbus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neely. Any questions from my colleagues?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker to come before council is Chad Whittington. Mr. Whittington, welcome to council. Just a reminder, name, organization, and you have 3 minutes.
Chad Whittington, President and CEO of CAPA, 55 East State Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Good evening, Council President Hardin, council members. I'm speaking this evening in support of the proposed ticket fee. CAPA will be a significant contributor to the funds that will be raised through the ticket fee. Over 90% of CAPA's revenue comes from earned sources, and the majority of that is generated by ticket sales. We are willing to apply this fee to our ticket sales because we believe strongly in the power and the possibilities that exist when we invest together in our community. I simply don't agree with those that suggest this fee will stifle arts and entertainment in our city, or that we will no longer be able to attract top-tier shows and artists. I'm proud of what CAPA is able to bring into the community via our artists and the hard work of our dedicated staff, but we wouldn't be where we are today without all the other cultural venues, events, festivals, and artists that are a part of this community. A strong cultural community benefits all of us. I've been fortunate to be in Columbus for almost 24 years, working in the arts for 20 of those years. It's been an amazing time to be in Columbus. Our growth, the quality of life that we experience, our increasing diversity. We're on an upward trajectory. I can't imagine anywhere else where my wife and I would rather raise our daughter. So when we look back 5, 10, 20 years from now, where are we going to be? What will we see in the rearview mirror? I see a city with a thriving arts scene. I see a city that supports a wide variety of individual artists creating art right here in our city. I see a place where you can't move around Columbus without bumping into art, no matter where you're at. A city with even more concerts, even more performance venues, more cultural spaces, and a growing and more diverse audience that comes to experience all that we collectively offer. There'll be so much going on that folks can't even pretend that they can keep up with it all. I think we're well on our way to that future already. A future for the arts that supports the goals of our city and feeds the souls of our citizens. But we need this funding to make sure it keeps moving forward. Investment is never easy, but sometimes it is critical. We are at one of those times. I appreciate your longstanding commitment to the arts and commend your courage in considering this ticket fee. I hope you all share my vision for the arts in Columbus, and in doing so will support this much-needed arts funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whittington. Questions from my colleagues? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker to come before council is Sue Porter. Ms. Porter, welcome to council.
Good evening. I am Sue Porter. I'm the Executive Director of Ballet Met, and we are located at 322 Mount Vernon Avenue. Thank you again, and on behalf of the entire Ballet Met organization, our Artistic Director, Edward Liang, the people we serve, we want to thank you for considering enhanced public funding for the arts and culture in our community, and to ask that you pass the ticket tax resolution. We also want to take a moment to thank Tom Katzenmeyer and GCAC. I know all of you have spent so much time on this and have exhibited tremendous leadership, so thank you. Ballet Met is in its 41st season. We touch over 100,000 community members each year through our performances, our academy, and our education programs. Our education programs alone reach over 25,000 K through 12 students. The majority of those are students attending Columbus Public City Schools. Those education programs range from the Wiggle Jig, which helps pre-K children get ready for kindergarten and increase their executive function, to the recent program that we started to help middle and high school students, Urban Dance and Wellness. That's where we go in, we're teaching hip hop and stress relief, like yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. And we find that it's very helpful to those students. However, we're constantly looking for funding to expand those types of programs. Valley Met has an annual budget of over $7 million. We employ 120 people. Most of them are Columbus residents. We own almost an entire city block, and we had last year an $8.6 million impact on the local economy. We have a vision to create and foster world-class art and artists in our community and beyond, and we strive to create the best possible dance possible. It's a lot of possible, sorry, to show the world what we create here in Columbus. We opened our season by taking our company to Montreal this year, performing Edward's Romeo and Juliet. Over Thanksgiving, we took our Nutcracker to Detroit. They don't have a professional ballet company there, and we took Columbus's product there. I would note on the Michigan-Ohio State weekend. We do strive to do everything we can with the monies. We earn 60% of our budget, and that's through our Academy admission and ticket sales. We have over $2 million in ticket sales. And I have to tell you, when it first came up that we were thinking about a ticket tax that would impact not-for-profit performing arts groups, it would not have been our first choice. But in going through the process and thinking about what this community needs, we are in support of this resolution. We're ready to do our part. We hope that you will all support it as well. Thank you for what you do. And remember, the Nutcracker opens here on December 7th, and we will be running through December, and happy holidays. Thank you.
Councilmember Tyson.
Thanks. Thank you, President Hardin. And Ms. Porter, I don't have a question really about the work of the work of the ballet in terms of this proposal, but I am intrigued by a program that you just mentioned. Certainly the urban dance and wellness with Columbus City Schools, that the yoga and mindfulness.
Yes.
I just appreciate your leadership, your thinking outside the box in terms of a program of this nature, when you certainly understand many of some of the challenges that our young people face in our community today. And I'm going to say, especially, I know our African-American girls, our black girls in school, to be able to have a program that will help them with yoga and mindfulness and take away some of the stress is critically important. So I really do thank you for that work and your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
Ms. Porter, you said that the ticket fee was not your first choice. What was your first choice?
General enhanced funding that would not have been directly related to our tickets. I have to tell you that we were very worried about the proposal when it first came up, because we do depend on our ticket sales to do everything we can to earn as much as we can to promote our programs. Yeah.
So lowering it to 5%, is that would be helpful to your organization?
Well, I think that if the thought is that that's what's best for our community, that's what we're going to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
Thank you.
Next speaker to come before council is Steve Whitman. Mr. Whitman, welcome back to council. Just a reminder, name, address, and new organization that you represent, in 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm Steve Whitman, 330 West Spring Street, Columbus 43215. I'm here tonight to represent the Columbus Museum of Art. I have been a downtown investor and developer for 30 years now. We came down that long ago to downtown Columbus. I've seen a tremendous growth in what has happened downtown, and it's been leadership in this community. Mayor Coleman and now the current mayor, who have been very supportive of what's happened. What we have seen happen has happened in a very high-quality way. And part of what has created the environment is our arts culture that we have downtown, whether it's the museum, whether it's the performing arts organization, and so on. We can say, you know, that somebody gets taxed here, somebody gets taxed there, but I will tell you that from a public standpoint, the community has built and participated in all of these facilities, whether it's the Ohio Theater, whether it's COSI, whether it's the Art Museum, whether it is the State Fairgrounds, Ohio State University, whether it's the Convention Center where a lot of these events occur. Oh, and by the way, not to mention the arena. I think these things are good. They bring a lot to this community. The viability of these things is very important. And the way I see this issue, and I'm very much in support of this revenue raiser, this fee on tickets, the way I see it is what we're really talking about is the quality factor. I think, and I suspect that if this whole thing went away, we would still have an art museum and a symphony and a ballet and the other groups. But what we're really talking about is what we do at the margin, at the edge, that provides a quality factor. And this is what I think Columbus has done that I think has been remarkable in the last 20 years. We have pushed, whether it's downtown development projects, whether it's our arts groups, everything that we've tried to do in this community, we have tried to do in a high-quality way, and I think that has happened. So I think this does something very good for our community here. Is there pain? Do we want an extra fee? Do we want an extra tax? No, but we pay them every day, and we get the benefit from them. Everybody that's in this room got here on a road that was paid for by the community, whether it's the state, the city, or all of the above. And guess what? That's a great benefit. That's the kind of infrastructure that we're talking about, and I think it's important. I think art is an infrastructure element for a community, very important. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Any questions from my colleagues? Well, thank you, and thank you for your work on the commission as well. Next speaker to come before council is Cindy Foley. Ms. Foley will be followed by Leslie Brecker and Tom I will get you.
Hi, my name is Cindy Foley. I'm with the Columbus Museum of Art, address 480 East Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Thank you, President Hardin and esteemed council members. My name is Cindy Foley. I'm the Deputy Director for Learning and Experience at the Columbus Museum of Art. 12 years ago, as we started the early preparations for the museum's expansion, I vividly remember my boss, Nanette Macy-June, saying, Cindy, we just can't change the outsides. We have to think more deeply about the impact and what it means to learn in a 21st century museum. With that, we launched into a radical shift in our work, where we articulated the value and the role of the artist in our society to imagine, question, connect, and explore. We made it our responsibility to nurture creative thinkers, individuals that think like artists. What we know is that art is a catalyst for new ideas. It is the antidote for oversimplified and narrow thinking. Art allows us to question and doesn't give us easy answers. It forces us to think about the complexity of ideas and each other. Art reminds us what it means to be human, and that we must all practice creative thinking for the betterment of our world. This hasn't been easy. It runs counter to the testing and the memorization culture in our schools. It wasn't what people expected from an art museum, but as we changed, our community called on us more and more for help. Teachers asking for professional development that would allow them to teach for creativity. Superintendents wanting a forum, a book group to think about educational reform. The OSU Med School asking, Could art and close looking help our students think and develop empathetic thinking? The new African Immigrants Commission asking for a community guide that would highlight the creative contributions of Central Ohio African immigrants. And Columbus State Early Childhood Education Department asking, could we help them to create a lab school rooted in our research that would ensure the highest quality early childhood education for their students? As this work progressed, the larger museum community paid attention. To date, we have had over 85 museums, national and international, visit the Columbus Museum of Art. In 2013, we won the National Medal for Museums with this work. We are proud of this work. But let's be clear, if this funding doesn't happen, the museum won't close. What will be affected will be this impact. Much of this work is invisible, but the ripple effects impact all of us. This vote is about values, impact, and the people of Columbus. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Foley? Thank you so much. Next speaker to come before council is Ms. Leslie Brecker, followed by Tom Sockney, and followed by Ms. Janet Chin.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Leslie Broker. I'm representing Broadway Across America and the Broadway in Columbus, and my address is 4001 Running Water Lane, Louisville, 40202. I've been responsible for the Broadway series in Columbus for the past 30 years. We appreciate this opportunity to express our serious concerns about the current proposed ordinance. We believe, of course, the arts should be supported, but the rate of 5% places our business and this market at a competitive disadvantage. With the facility fee we're currently paying, it really feels somewhat like a double tax. And we're a bit confused about some of the language, which appears to be a GCAC member carve-out. Columbus has been compared to neighboring cities with regard to both its public support for the arts and the fact that peer cities already have similar taxes. However, it's really not completely accurate. In Cleveland, like most cities, Broadway is exempt from their 8% ticket tax, and in Cincinnati, it's a much lower 3% tax. Cleveland is a 3-week Broadway market, Cincinnati is a 2-week Broadway market, and Columbus is a 1-week market. The length of run is predicated upon ticket sales history in each city. Columbus is already in 3rd place amongst the 3 big Ohio cities. By adding this 5% tax, it will solidify or worsen our position and cause us to be even further down the pipeline for first-run Broadway shows. When my dad and I came to Columbus 30 years ago, we took over a bankrupt Broadway series. With the support of this great community, the beautiful theaters, and a superb partner in Kappa, we've built the series into a serious competitor and a major economic contributor. A 5% tax will set us back. With a more reasonable 2 to 3%, we can continue to compete and grow and contribute beyond the tax. Each season we spend approximately $1 million in local wages on carpenters, electricians, musicians, wardrobe, hair, etc., and another $1 million on local media. Our trade association, the Broadway League, through its annual statistical impact study, estimates that our current season will have a $55 million economic impact on the city of Columbus. We're already paying a $3.50 fee on every single ticket, which is roughly $500,000 or 4 to 5%, and this fee goes to Kappa. Paying an additional 5% feels like and will be interpreted as a double tax. We also have concern about some of the language in Section 375.10, and it might be drafting or interpretation, but it reads as though the proponents of the tax, the GCAC members who are going to tax themselves, have been carved out. That sure doesn't seem fair or in line with what had been previously stated. So it looks to us that the only people who will be mandatorily taxed would be pro sports, events, concerts, and Broadway. The taxes proposed will make it incredibly difficult for me to convince the producers, the shows, and the booking agents to make Columbus a priority. It will be one of the few markets where Broadway isn't exempt from a ticket tax and will be one of the highest rates for Broadway across America throughout the entire country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Leslie. I was going to ask, And this is for Mr. Tom Katzenmeier. There were a couple points that I wanted to see if you could address, and the first being the GCAC carve-out and the opt-in that Ms. Bricker was speaking of.
There is no carve-out for GCAC organizations. We are all going to be having that fee put on our admissions.
Great. Thank you for the
Sure,
clarification.
absolutely.
Thank you, President Hart.
President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. So just for clarification, I mean,
Sure.
You already shared we're 3 of 3.
3 of
and
3.
that's without having.
But our goal is not to stay 3 of 3.
So can you share what that goal is and where you think or what the strategy is? Because currently we don't have one. One thing we heard was, oh, we have a competitive advantage by not having a fee. You're saying it doesn't really matter if we had a fee or not.
It does matter in that when you're looking at how this adds to the expense for a producer and it impacts the royalties that we will pay out. In Cincinnati, when we went in 30 years ago, it was a one-week market, and we were able to build it enough to cause the Aronoff Center to be built, and we committed to moving to 16 performances rather than 8, nearly doubling the economic impact. So that's the goal, continue to bring in the best shows, which then will cause more people to come to the theater, which will then enable us to double our capacity.
Please.
And I don't know if you were at the first hearing, but one thing we talked about in terms of facilities is it's the show. And so when we get a Hamilton, people are going to come for that. Isn't it just the show itself that's going to be what's attracting, not what the ticket price or fee is going to be?
Well, it's the whole package price, and I think you'll find that in most markets, the Broadway series is the economic engine of a venue, that we are, in fact, a de facto subsidizer because we're paying higher rates and whatnot. So absolutely, it is the show that will bring them, but that bringing in Hamilton allows us to bring Something Rotten or The King and I or another show that may not bolster ticket sales, but certainly delivers and is something we should do.
Councilman Brown.
The King and I will bring people in, by the way.
I hope so. I sure do hope so.
Just to be clear, you were stating that the 3% or 2% was an acceptable sense of the tax?
Yes, it keeps us competitive with Cincinnati. So when I'm negotiating for a show, we're looking at expenses, it keeps us level.
So conceptually, the issue of a tax isn't the problem, it's just a question of what the rate is.
Well, it's always a problem, but
That's understood. But that's
it
not
is something we could live with, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other colleagues have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Berger. Next speaker coming for council is Mr. Tom Skanowski. It's a Coney, I apologize.
I'm hopeful council's decision will be easier than the pronunciation of my last name.
It's just me, sir.
That's good. Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Tom Ciccone. I reside at 6000 Havens Road, 43230, and I chair the GCAC board. I want to thank council for your political courage and vision. We are proud that our leaders have engaged in a process as thoughtful and fair as the one around GCAC's proposal. You have modeled the best kind of leadership around this issue. Leadership that looks upward and forward. You have listened, negotiated, and improved our original proposal. You have fulfilled your duties and have trusted, as I do, that an enlightened electorate will not be misled if put to the test. Council has kept the long-term interest of our city at the center of the conversation and explored reasonable ways of addressing the future of arts in the community. This has entailed recognizing the sustainability challenge that our artists collectively face, respecting years of investigation and reports leading to the fee proposal, while acknowledging both our good faith and the real needs of the arts and cultural community so vital to our community. And of central importance to all of us, championing the concept that arts and culture elevate all. You have listened to the concerns and objections to our original idea and sought creative solutions to our needs. You have consistently raised our collective vision and ignored the threats of bullies who seek to divide us in pursuit of their own self-interest. You understand that money raised in our plan will stay in Columbus to serve Columbus. You prioritize having Columbus money returning to Columbus artists rather than leaving the city in the pockets of those who may be here solely to profit. In supporting this ticket fee, Council will ensure that Columbus can keep making art so that a vibrant and growing culture of sports, entertainment, and art can keep Columbus thriving. The time is now. On behalf of GCAC and those we serve, thank you very much for considering this important proposal.
Thank you, sir. Questions from my colleagues? Thank you. Next speaker to come before council is Ms. Janet Chin. Ms. Chin, welcome to council. Ms. Chin will be followed by Daniel Walshaw and Marion Vanderhearn Hayden from the Urban Art Space. Ms. Chin, welcome.
Hi. Good evening, President Hardin and members of City Council. My name is Janet Chen, and I'm the Executive Director for Pro Musica Chamber Orchestra, and I reside at 3440 Live Oak Place in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this evening and passionately support GCAC's proposed ticket fee. For 4 decades, Pro Musica has been deeply committed to transforming lives in Columbus through the power of music. On the stage, we're proud to deliver innovative and diverse programming, but equally important is our passionate commitment to our work off the stage and in the community. Each year, Pro Musica's free outreach programs serve approximately 20,000 people in our libraries, retirement communities, schools, and neighborhoods. We believe that everyone deserves the opportunity to experience and access art regardless of life circumstances. And here are just a few examples to share. Our Play Us Forward program serves over 110 middle schoolers, 95% of who are living in the highest poverty and highest crime neighborhoods, affording these students access to the arts by gifting violin instruments and music instruction during the school day. Play Us Forward not only gives a point of entry to the arts, but more importantly, builds self-motivation, self-evaluation, and self-confidence in these students who learn how to set and achieve goals that can be applied to all life skills. Over the past 7 years, our summer music series held at the Franklin Park Conservatory has reached approximately 18,000 attendees. This free series focuses on accessibility and community outreach while maintaining the highest artistic standard. And our library music series, in collaboration with the Columbus Metropolitan Library and its branches, brings approximately 1,000 children and families in locations throughout the neighborhood, bridging music and literacy together in a nurturing and safe environment. I want to share a few words from those who benefit from our community and about why this is important. We have a 6th grade Play Us Forward student who told us, "Violin class makes me happy and forget all of my problems in life. Playing for people and putting a smile on their face just makes me feel really good." In our recent summer series rehearsal, a gentleman stood quietly listening to us practice. When our music director, David, asked from the stage if anyone had any comments to add, he actually stood up and spoke. And he said, "I do. I want to thank you for playing such beautiful music here. I live in this neighborhood and never had the chance to experience and listen to this kind of music." Sustaining these programs is what makes our community strong, and the proposed ticket fee is a fair approach to significantly increase support for small and large arts and cultural organizations to do more and achieve more for our residents. We must strive to provide the opportunity for every child, family, senior citizen to have access to the arts and cultural activities. Thank you so much for considering this important proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Janet. Any questions or comments from our colleagues? Well, thank you for all you do in our community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker to come before council, Mr. Daniel Walshaw.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Walshaw. I live at 368 East Frankfurt Street, and I work for the Columbus Symphony Orchestra and their management team. I rise here in support of this proposal. I'm a new citizen to Columbus of only 2 years, so I'm one of the new generations that's flooding this wonderful city for opportunity. I know that the CSO has voiced its support of this proposal in many past hearings, so my remarks today are of a practical plea and one that focuses on the impact that arts have on American industry and wealth. Yes, the arts add millions of dollars of value in business participation in the local areas they serve every year, but there is a broader impact that's overlooked. We lie to ourselves if we pretend that America's great innovation, exports, and wealth are not directly influenced and impacted by the arts. There are numerous examples of why this is true, but the first obvious example is the entertainment industry. Where would television, movies, Broadway, rock concerts, etc. be without the shadow boxes, Catco's, Ohio theaters, and Columbus symphonies that train and inspire the vast talent of actors, dancers, musicians, makeup artists, lighting designers, tech crews, photographers, cartoonists, etc., that it takes to run those industries, to add wealth to those industries, to make those industries one of America's greatest exports? And the answer is nowhere. The local nonprofit theaters and education centers that support the arts are the breeding grounds for the talent that saturates those fields. And remember that these industries, these entertainment industries, are where other industries advertise, including politics. My other example is design. American products are exported and coveted all around the world, not just because they're functional, but because they're beautiful. We wouldn't have the iPhone if it wasn't for the designers wanting to put something beautiful in our hands. Car companies excel not because they make efficient or powerful cars, but they make cars that we want to be in. These designers are artists. They took art classes. They went to their local museums. They were inspired by the arts in their community. They make products competitive by making them beautiful that we want to buy, artistic products. If you want an example of a product void of art inspiration, just look at cars built in the Soviet Union. They are simply boxes of misery and despair. My point is that America's great wealth and innovation is directly and positively impacted by our arts communities. They are the feeding ground of talent that allows us to be the greatest nation on earth. Please support this proposal to sustain arts in Columbus, making it a hub that feeds the creative talent of our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walshaw. Any questions or comments? Thank you so much. Next speaker to come before council is Miriam Vanderheiden, and followed by Jim Sweeney, followed by Patty Van Niesen.
My name is Marijn Vanderheiden. I am with the Ohio State University Urban Arts Space. We're located at 50 West Town Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Thank you, council members, Council President Hardin, and thank you to the very broad alliance of support and leadership that has formed around the current proposal for seeking more sustainable funding options for the arts in Columbus. I could not be more supportive. It is my opinion that advocating for the arts is not just about support, it's about financing, because we get something in return. Art and culture make people smarter, ensure economic prosperity, and connect people with each other. Music lessons make children more focused and socially skilled. Art gives self-confidence. Theater and film visits teach us to deal with moral dilemmas, help us to move in and others and to feel the suffering of others. And visual arts puts the daily worries into perspective and sharpens our thinking. Art and culture bring prosperity because people want to live in a city where there's something to do, and art and culture play an important role in this. The arts also connect people, not only because people go to an exhibition, a film, a dance performance together, but also because they talk about it, because the shared experience engages us in a meaningful and civil way. Arts and artists excel, often in a mutually beneficial way, inciting increased excellence and creating new opportunities for community engagement and expression. Quality, diversity, and accessibility of art also contribute to our moral intelligence, providing consolation when we face adversity and building municipal prosperity and mutual involvement. At Urban Art Space, Ohio State's downtown arts and culture hub and practicum space, I work with Ohio State students and a new generation of engaged artists, arts leaders, and arts supporters, for whom it is important to know that our city can provide timely and sustainable funding options so that they can envision themselves staying and thriving in Columbus and not having to look elsewhere to find community and supports. This is the promise of our joint investment, and I'm feeling very optimistic about the opportunities that lie ahead as a result of the current proposal and the broad support. Thank you again for your leadership and collaboration.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments? Thank you. Mr. Jim Sweeney, welcome back to council. Just a reminder, name, organization, or address, and you have 3 minutes. Mr. Sweeney is followed by Patty Von Niesen and Susan Bradford.
Good evening, President Hardin, members of City Council. I'm Jim Sweeney. I live at 500 West Walnut. That's in Franklinton, area code 43215. I am here representing the Columbus coalition of citizens called Protect Art for Columbus, of which I am one of 13 co-chairs. We wholeheartedly support the ticket fee. Protect Art for Columbus is a diverse group of neighborhood leaders from all parts of Columbus, small business owners, including restaurants and performance venues, millennials, baby boomers, parents, retirees, artists, and sports fans. Since we organized on Thursday, November 8, 2,000 people have joined our coalition. They joined through social media, our website, or by signing one of these advocacy cards. Tonight, I am pleased to submit over 1,000 of these cards to Council. We will continue to collect more cards and secure more members to show support for the 5% ticket fee. Art has power, and we need to use it. Columbus has benefited from neighborhoods reorganized around arts and culture and entertainment venues and outlets which serve and now serve as economic engines for the region. We've seen it in the Short North, we've seen it in the Arena District. Both areas demonstrated significant economic development, beginning with the arts and culture sector, followed by growth in jobs and associated tax revenue to support city services citywide, a public and private partnership that works. Now we're witnessing that arts and culture in my neighborhood in Franklinton, a community that was long ago written off in many people's minds as the bottoms and a good place to get stabbed. Art has changed that. Now the San Francisco Examiner recently published a story about how cool Columbus is and how people from San Francisco should consider moving here. One of the main things they talked about in that article was the Columbus Idea Foundry in the neighborhood, Franklinton, where it is. There are many more neighborhoods in Columbus that would benefit tremendously from this sort of creative placemaking. And the number one partner, the one indispensable partner in such an effort, is a well-supported Greater Columbus Arts Council. I believe this proposal is an excellent example of public and private partnership that allows for short and long-term planning for a neighborhood. I thank the council for its smart compromise to propose the Columbus arts community that is nationally, internationally recognized. The 5% user fee is an excellent recommendation that builds on public-private partnership funding model that has kept Columbus in the forefront economically and culturally. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Any questions? And we appreciate, they're right there.
Our cards. Okay. Who shall I give these to?
Councilman. Thank you for your advocacy. Next speaker to come before council is Patty Van Niesen. Welcome back to council, followed by Susan Bradford and then Jeff Matthews.
Good evening, President Hardin and council. I am Patty Von Niesen. I represent Summer Jam West. My address is 254 South Westgate Avenue, and I'm a Hilltop resident. I'd like to share my opinion on the proposed 5% ticket tax and what it means for Summer Jam West and the Hilltop community in general. Anyone who's spent any time in Columbus knows the Hilltop is not a thriving arts community. In fact, it isn't a thriving community at all. The Hilltop is known for crime, drugs, prostitution, homelessness, and poverty. Summer Jam West seeks to change that, one art installation, one festival at a time. The Short North used to be known as a place for gangs, and if you valued your child's life, you didn't let them out after dark. It was the arts community that brought the change and turned the Short North into the vibrant commercial corridor you see today. When I first moved to the city in 2009, Franklinton was still known as the Bottoms. Currently, it's moving forward at top speed and is now referred to as the Franklinton Arts District. How did that change come about? Through the strength and driving force of its arts community. The 5% ticket tax is essential for the Hilltop. Businesses up here do not have the financial capacity to support the arts as in other areas of the city. We rely on the bulk of our funding to come from the Greater Columbus Arts Council. Summer Jam West struggles each year to meet its budget that includes hosting a quality arts festival, as well as the installation of major art on the Hilltop. The Hilltop is the gateway to Columbus. We're the first impression that visitors get when they're entering the city from the west. Art beautifies, instills pride, and inspires us to do better as a community. It gives us hope, it causes us to consider change, it encourages interaction and educates us about the world around us. Financially, public art and public festivals bring revenue to the community. Thousands of dollars are spent in the Hilltop community because of art. On average, festival goers spend $50 per person, calculating out to an estimated $400,000 spent on the Hilltop in just one weekend. Summer Jam West strives to bring about an economic change to the Hilltop community that will only grow throughout the years. With that being said, the cheap seat for KISS will cost you $65. A $3.25 ticket fee added on to this is going to cost you less than a cup of coffee on your way to work, and certainly less than the tip you leave for the server when you buy a couple of drinks before the show. Yet will benefit your city so much more. Skip the coffee, fill your cup with change.
Thank you, Ms. Von Niesen. Are there any questions for? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker to come for council, Ms. Susan Bradford. Been looking, I have not, don't see her in the chamber. The next speaker to come before council is Mr. Jeff Mathis. Oh, there he is. Followed by Nancy Cotting, followed by Michael Reese.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Mathis. I'm the owner of Dewey Amici Restaurant, representing Dewey Amici Restaurant. We are located at 65 East Gay Street, right here in downtown. And I'm here to support the funding initiative recommended by GCAC. I'm going to read a statement, keep it short and simple, that epitomizes my opinion. When the arts thrive, small businesses survive. Full theaters, museums, concert venues, art galleries create customers for our businesses, which create higher real estate values, better results for public schools, and benefits for our community. In a time when our country and state are divided, this is an initiative that will keep Columbus united. Long live the arts, long live sports, long live access to all of those in our community. That pretty much is why I support the initiative. And I trust and know the leadership at GCAC, and obviously trust and know the leadership of our city council, and hope that you'll proceed with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Next speaker to come before council is Nancy Cotting. Welcome to council.
Good evening. Nancy Cotting, 5160 Webster Road, Centerburg, 43011. President Hardin, pleasure to see you, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you this evening, and I would also like to greet the audience as well and welcome their interest in this topic. I would like to disclose that I work professionally as an advocate in historic preservation for the German Village Society here in the city of Columbus. As an advocate for the use of historic preservation to address social and environmental challenges in our community, I would like to commend those responsible for constructing this plan, specifically the Stabilization Fund and its proposed 20% allocation to our museums, theaters, and other critical civic gems. We preservationists are the first to recognize the negative associations often tied to the term historic preservation. In both civic and private circles, our activities are often viewed as an obstruction to progress, an economic extravagance, an elitist indulgence, and a mere afterthought as we plan for the future as a smart city, as a city with an emerging knowledge-based economy, poised to explore the technological frontiers of tomorrow. Nothing could be further from the truth. When I say historic preservation, I want you to think cultural regeneration. When I say historic preservation, I want you to think environmental responsibility. When I say historic preservation, I want you to think social stability and economic opportunity in areas of this city where there is little. I want you to think of the power of the buildings that shelter the activities of our lives, including those of our artists, architecture in all forms from the Levesque Tower and our grand theaters, to the rows of derelict worker housing, to tell us who we are, how we have succeeded, and how and whom we have failed. Funding the ongoing maintenance and preservation of the iconic cultural institutions housed in older structures here in Columbus via the proposed percentage of revenue contained within the Stability Fund is one of the most impactful investments, not in the past, mind you, but in the future of this city that we can make. It has the potential to signal to all that retaining and preserving existing building stock, in this case our grandest examples, is a priority, the socially, culturally, and environmentally responsible thing to do. Our intent in the preservation community, the development community, as they truly are one and the same, should be to build upon this effort we are speaking to here today in order to bring the benefits of preservation, the environmentally and socially responsible regeneration of existing buildings and landscapes that comprise our city down deeper into our community, beyond just the iconic cultural and arts institutions, and down into our neighborhoods and commercial blocks, regardless of historic designation or not, so that all benefit from our activities, not just those who can afford to attend events at our grand theaters and other civic gems. As an advocate for preservation, as a regenerist, I applaud this effort and support the Columbus Art Alliance and this ticket tax. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cotting. Any questions? Have a great evening. Thank you for coming this evening. Next speaker is Michael Reese, and then followed by Eric Roush, and then our last speaker will be Mr. Bruce Harkey.
Good evening. It's my first time speaking here. Good evening, and thank you, Council President Hardin and council members. My name is Michael Reese, and I reside at 953 Harrison Avenue. I would like to share one example of the remarkable impact that GCAC grants have had in the local artist community. In 2018 and 2019, I collaborated with 24 artists that were granted professional development grants for travel to Cuba. During their visit to Cuba, they had the opportunity to meet meaningful conversations about art, culture, and the new craft that with many of the leaders in Cuba, such as Sandra Ramos, Abel Barroso, Peña, Adonis, and Lolo. I love the name Lolo. There's Cacho, there's Lolo, to name but a few. These Cuban artists are found in private collections, museums, including MoMA and our Pizzuti collection here in Columbus. These people-to-people interactions that included art leaders in Cuba led Columbus artists to be invited to participate next year in the 500th anniversary celebrating the city of Havana, Cuba, and also the Cuban Biennale to also be happening in Matanzas. So a total of 38 artists from Columbus area will be on the world stage, thanks to the grants of the GCAC. If not for the support of the arts through GCAC and the City Council, opportunities to show that Columbus has an amazing artist would not have happened. The additional funding that will make it possible for many more experiences like this to happen in Columbus. After all, art makes Columbus, and Columbus makes art. I appreciate your leadership in making our community a better place to live. I also wanted to present the letter I just received last week inviting us to participate in the Biennale in Havana next year. I hope you can all attend.
Thank you, Mr. Reese, and thank you for your work and for your artistry. Next speaker is Mr. Eric Rausch.
Good evening. My name is Eric Rausch. My address is 845 Prince William Lane. That's in Westerville, beyond 270. But my wife and I also own a condo in the Short North that we rent out, and we lived in the Short North for many years. I spend a lot of my time at the Cultural Arts Center, just a few blocks from here. At the pleasure of City Council, I'm contracted to teach clay classes, and because of a nonprofit that helps the Cultural Arts Center, I'm also contracted to manage that facility. Beyond that, I've had the opportunities to create a couple of public art pieces in town, much thanks to Michael Reese. It was not planned that I speak right after him. And I also am one of those 38 artists who are traveling back to Havana next April to participate in this historic exhibition. Beyond what I do for my individual artwork, and that is, by the way, who I'm here supporting, is myself as an individual artist and an entrepreneur in this city. Because of my contract with the City of Columbus, I'm able to teach classes and earn some income that way. I'm also in the process of starting a business that's based in the arts on the south side of Columbus at 2000 South High Street at the newly named Fort Maker Space. I will be starting a business that is based in producing ceramic wares and tiles. I've been awarded some of these grants that the GCAC that we're talking about. These small grants that come to me make a really big difference. The $1,000 that I got to help me travel to Cuba, it cut into half of my, the cost that I put forward to do that. Getting these grants has also taught me a great deal as an artist. Going through the process that the GCAC puts forward gives us a tremendous amount of education as an artist. As an artist, you want to create, but you must learn first how to create. And it's through the support of the GCAC. I've been the beneficiary of 2 fellowships in this city, and I really feel that the city of Columbus is the reason that I am succeeding as an artist. I was the weird art kid in high school, always spending time in the art room. I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts from The Ohio State University, and now I've completed a couple public art pieces in the heart of our city, and that's all because of what this city puts forward towards the arts. I'm supporting this fee so passionately because it's not for what's today. We support the arts in this city, that's clear. But it's for the artists like myself who are in high school right now. Maybe they're going to graduate from Ohio State or Ohio University, stay within the state, or maybe they're going to come here because of so much more that can be done with this extra funds. I also think it's important to note that this is solving 2 problems facing our city. Granted, first world problems. You go to Cuba, you've got real problems. Here, we need to figure out how to support the arts during a recession. This helps that. Here we have a phenomenal arena that houses an NHL team, and we own that, so we have to keep that up. I'd finally like to just point out a couple of the arguments that I've heard from the coalition against taxation, and I'm hearing the words oppressive and politically charged. I'm hearing that this will affect ticket fees, and I can say as a ticket buyer, if I'm going to spend $125 to attend a Broadway show, I will spend that $132 or whatever it would come out to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roush. That was very compelling, and thank you for representing us in Cuba, and look forward to you doing so again.
It's my pleasure.
The final speaker to come before, any questions or comments? I apologize. Final speaker to come before council is Mr. Bruce Harkey. Mr. Harkey, welcome back to council.
Good evening, President Hardin and members of City Council. It's great to be with you this evening. I'm Bruce Harkey. I'm the President and CEO of Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens. I moved to Columbus in 1992. I was working for Honda in Tokyo and transferred to Columbus with Honda for what I thought was going to be 2 years on my way to LA. I always describe Columbus as the Hotel California. You can check in, but you can never leave. In 1993, though, after 1 year in Columbus, I decided to make Columbus my home, and I have now lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. And the reason I made that decision is because Columbus was a vibrant community that was collaborative with amazing community spirit, and I love this city. So with this decision, I wanted to give back to the community, and I approached Honda about becoming a board member in the arts and cultural community. And I chose CATCO because as a child in Detroit, I attended a lot of theater performances my cousin performed in. 10 years later, I had the honor of serving as board president when CATCO was in a bankruptcy period. And partnering with my friend Bill Connor, who had just moved to the city of Columbus, working with Bill and working with other community leaders, we saved CATCO. And I think that that speaks to the spirit of collaboration and partnership in this community. City Council requested an art sustainability report, and in that report it said that Columbus is a benchmark when it comes to efficiency and collaboration. Unfortunately, from a financial viewpoint, from public support, we were at the bottom of the barrel. And I think this ticket tax is so important to ensuring that this sector moves forward and we can continue to have an impact in this community. I'm honored to lead the conservatory for the last 12 years, and I've worked with many of you on what the conservatory has been able to accomplish. We recently announced Community Days for the Scotts Miracle-Gro Foundation Children's Garden. We've welcomed over 20,000 residents from the city of Columbus and Franklin County who are having this amazing experience. We presented international artists at the conservatory. We've opened over 300 community gardens in this community. We have also grown our earned revenue 25% to 75%, as have many of my colleagues in the arts and cultural sector. I believe that stable public funding coupled with the innovative spirit of this sector is what's going to move this community forward and will ensure that Columbus remains the amazing city I fell in love with in 1992. So I implore you to support the ticket tax as presented by GCAC. And I thank Council for your leadership, Tom Katzenmeier for his leadership, and my colleagues in the Columbus Cultural Leadership Consortium. And I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Harkey. Any questions or comments for Mr. Harkey?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any final comments from my colleagues? Any closing comments? Are there any closing comments from Mr. Katzenmeier or Mr. Don Brown? None. Mr. Brown.
President Hardin, members of council, I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the Nationwide Arena or its arrangements.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this process, for engaging, for being a part of the creative Columbus community, but really for just being a part of Columbus and helping us have a conversation about where we go from here, how we continue to grow, how we continue to move forward. I would certainly like to thank my colleagues who have been extremely engaged. This, among many other issues, have been one where we have taken a lot of phone calls and a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings, and we are happy to do so. Over the next couple of weeks, well, first we will introduce the two ordinances on this Monday for first reading. Over the next week or so, we will work with my colleagues on any additional amendments that need to be made to make this legislation right. We want to vote on the right piece of legislation and support the right ordinances that will sustain the arts and continue our creative economy here in our community. And so, thank you. Thank you all for your advocacy. Again, the ordinances will come for first reading on this Monday, and with a final vote on December 10th here in council chambers. That concludes this hearing. Thank you.